Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak, and I happen to have my wife back again today. Say hi.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, baby.
Hey,
So we have been on a interesting journey the last few days. If you can hear it from my voice, I have a little bit of a cold going on, and I'm having trouble breathing. But we were suddenly startled, I guess you'd say, with the realization that our kitchen sink was leaking, and that was not good. Not the sink itself, but the faucet.
yeah, but I have had a seek. I've kind of thought that it was doing it for a while. I think you and I were in the kitchen. I don't know. It's been probably at least a month, if not longer. And I made a comment about the fact that I could see. I was like, I think this thing might be leaking because around the base of it, it would have water. And I don't know. I thought maybe, okay, maybe not. It might just be the fact that we're in here fixing dinner and I'm terrible with splashing water everywhere. So I didn't really think much about it.
I thought the same thing because oftentimes we get our hands wet from messing around with stuff in the
Yeah.
sink. And then you reach up to touch the controls and you're like, well, it must have dripped off me.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean, I,
exactly
I
that's
kept
kind of
thinking
what
the
I was
same
thinking.
thing.
But there was also several times that I would see water there and I would think, there's no way that I dripped water there. But I just kind of let it go. Yesterday morning is whenever now we had one of the what was the name? What was the brand name before?
It was Price Fister,
And
the
yeah,
Pfister. Yeah.
now that was not the original faucet, kitchen faucet that was here that they
The
installed when
original
we
was a
built.
Delta. I remember
Right.
that.
I don't remember how long it lasted or anything like that. I do remember going to, I want to say Lowe's and picking out the one that we
Yeah.
had. I noticed yesterday it was one of the ones that you had the pull down spout that you could click it to spray or
Hmm.
just water flow. I had no problems with it. It worked absolutely fine for many, many years. I noticed yesterday morning, or kind of early in the morning, that it looked like it was leaking water out of the top of it where the sprayer
Makes
come. Yeah,
makes that connection.
yes. And
Yeah.
I tightened it up. It quit. And I didn't think another thing about it. Not at all. Yesterday, I was doing a lot of stuff in the kitchen. I actually cleaned and resealed the granite countertop and tops in the kitchen. So I had the water off and on a lot. And the next thing I knew, water was coming out of a part of the faucet that it's not supposed to come out of. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then we opened up the bottom, and of course, it backtracked up inside of there, and it was coming in the bottom, and it just became a whole thing. So,
I want to say you had just come inside from working out in the yard. You had showered, sat down on the couch, and that thing started spewing water. I mean, it's not like it was making a mess, but it's definitely, it could not be used properly.
yeah.
And I made a comment, and I thought, looks like you're going to be doing some plumbing work.
Yeah,
So,
we didn't realize that some plumbing work was going to turn into 2 days worth of plumbing
yeah,
work.
yeah.
So yeah, in between all of that, this suddenly became something we had to work on. So I was like, okay, well, do you want to ride with me up to the store and take a look? And she'd been doing a bunch of housework and said, I'd rather not. I'm not really
I was
prepared to
like, FaceTime
go
me.
out.
Hey, this
Yeah, FaceTime.
new technology stuff. Let's use it.
We got phones, we got smartphones. Let's be smart. You just FaceTime me when you're there. Show me what I'm gonna get, and then I'll tell you whether I like it or not. I was like, all right,
And
that
that
makes
actually
sense.
worked pretty good.
Yeah.
The only bad part about it, and I will have to say now after going both this morning to Lowe's and Home Depot, because we had problems with the faucet that we bought yesterday, they do not do the displays very well
Right.
for somebody to pick out a faucet.
Specifically, Lowe's does a crappy job.
Very crappy.
We live in Florence, South Carolina, and our Lowe's in Florence, for most of the models, they didn't even have the sprayer attached, so you
Yeah.
couldn't see what the sprayer looked like. And I don't know if this is just them not thinking about it or them trying to set it up so that they don't have to do anything. You just go in and buy what you want and pick it out from underneath. But everything is very tall, so that if you were
Well, it doesn't even
your height,
matter.
you
Well,
you couldn't touch anything if you had
exactly.
to.
I mean, I'm very sure
You're
I'm not
4'11".
average. I'm
Yeah.
4'11. But even the tallest of persons
Yeah.
couldn't have reached some of
Oh yeah,
those.
there's some of those that my brother probably couldn't reach.
I mean,
I mean,
why,
you
number
got 8 feet in
one,
the
do they
air.
not have them down lower
Yeah.
so that you could properly look at them? And the other thing is, because to me, I like to know that if I'm going to pay $300
Yeah.
for a water faucet for the kitchen, that I'm getting something that feels like $300, which doesn't make any difference
Which
nowadays.
none of
You're
them do.
definitely not getting that.
Yeah.
The one we took out, and like I said, I don't remember how many years we'd had it. It was a the old faucet, just the faucet by itself that we pulled off of the sink yesterday, weighed more than the box and everything in it of the $300 one that we bought this morning.
The one we bought this morning was
320.
355 after
Well, yeah,
taxes.
with tax and everything, it was 355.
Yeah,
That's expensive.
it is, and it feels like cheap plastic.
It does.
I had no problem carrying it in one hand with
Yeah.
just the strap. I was like, this is, I'd be surprised if it weighed 2 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so light. But I understand them trying to make things cheaper to try to save a little money and then also trying to, I can only imagine that back in the day, pipes and stuff were made out of metal and they were made to last, but also they had corrosion problems because metal does attract things to
Right.
stick to it, like calcium and copper and that sort of thing. And so it gets discolored over time and it doesn't look nice. And, we've all seen the videos of people doing, plumbing work where they had to solder, some kind of brass to a system or, melt something together with copper fittings and stuff like that. And then eventually all that stuff got replaced with plastic. Well, now we're at the stage where even the stuff we touch and use is plastic. I mean, every piece we had in there is plastic except for those brass fittings that went
And
on the
I
connectors at the
while I
bottom.
get that, why is the price triple? I mean, and I understand inflation. I get that. But
Yeah.
if you're making the actual faucet out of something that is 10 times or maybe even more cheaper than what you used to make it out of 20 years ago, why can I mean, I guess because they can charge those kind of
They
prices.
can, and it's also features. So if you just get a sink with the nozzle and the turn on valve, that's $100. Okay. And then you want the sprayer, that's another 100.
Yeah.
And then you want the touchless part, that's another 120. It's
Yeah,
just
but that's too cool.
it is pretty
Of
cool.
course, now yesterday, whenever we hooked up when you installed that was a Moen that we bought
It
yesterday,
was a
right?
Moen. Their model was called the Birchfield, and I was not impressed with that at all. I
It
was I was
I was not.
pretty
I'm not
disappointed.
gonna say that I was disappointed in how cheaply made it felt, but after going to the store today, I realized that's all
They're
of
all
them.
cheap, yeah.
That's all of them. But the main problem with the one that we bought yesterday was it dripped. We
Yeah.
thought you thought yesterday evening after getting our neighbor to help you that you had fixed the problem, and then this morning
Yeah.
the drip was back.
Yeah, so I put a lot of I guess over time I've put a lot of stock in Moen because I've been proud of the fact that the Moen faucet we have in our bathroom has lasted so well with as much use as we've given it.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's been 15 years.
it's
Well,
been
almost
15
almost
years and
16.
we've had no trouble out of it. But if I'm honest and I look at the broad spectrum of things, most every other faucet in this house is Delta. We didn't have any problems out of those either.
No.
So I can't really,
Well, just with the exception of the kitchen. This is our third
yeah,
kitchen faucet
but
in
it's also
15
the
years.
most touched piece of faucet that we have. And I mean, let's face it, the kitchen sink gets touched by us, kids,
Well, I'm terrible with
everybody.
I know for a fact that I have a tendency to use a lot of water. I wish I didn't, and I wish but I do in the kitchen. I
Oh,
use
I thought
a
I thought you were gonna say I have a tendency to slam that handle really hard.
I don't know if that's it. Maybe I do, but I do turn the water off and on a
Well,
lot in the kitchen.
raising three boys, I'm surprised that's the only thing you haven't broken
But
because they've given you plenty of reason to slam the handle.
trust me, I did not intentionally
Oh,
break it yesterday.
yeah,
And of
I know.
course, then this morning when it was still leaking, although yesterday after you've fixed the leak, installed it, and then you and Mr. Paul figured out the little tiny leak on the handle, I still was not 100% happy with it because I even went and dug the carton out of the trash.
I know. I wasn't looking forward to redoing all that again because it took quite a while yesterday. Even though the video that we put on YouTube is only like 9 minutes, I was like, this took about 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to doing this
Well,
again.
let's face it, underneath a cabinet in the kitchen is not the most ideal place to work.
No, no, especially with a giant garbage disposal in your way
Right.
too. I mean, that takes up a lot of space. The pipes take up space. The garbage disposal take up space. You got wiring for the garbage disposal too that gets in the
Yeah.
way, and it's in an awkward angle that you have to lift yourself up off the floor to get over the
But I
ledge. And
will have to say I do not feel as guilty. Notice I left as guilty as I would have if I'd have made you switch it out and it wasn't leaking. The fact that it was leaking
Yeah.
meant that we could not keep it regardless.
Right.
We had to take that one back.
Yeah.
And of course, I used that opportunity to get the one that has the touchless feature.
Yeah.
Which is going to take a little bit of time to get used to.
It is.
But it seems like a very cool feature.
We've already started playing with it.
Yes.
And you've realized, oh, actually, this is going to be really handy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it will take getting used to. Also, I hate to talk bad about Moen, but man, that everything on it was so cheaply made. Yeah. Even the nut that goes on the bottom that's supposed to hold the whole faucet feature together with the bolt under it, the nut itself wasn't even made of metal. It was like a weird composite. I mean, it weighed less than anything, and I was like, I kind of want some metal here to hold things together. I could just see us using this over time, and then suddenly the thing breaks. The actual bolt breaks. I was like, yeah, this is probably going to happen. But I will say that the Delta that we bought, there are some pieces on it that actually have some substance to it. The bolt they have that holds underneath it is actually metal.
Okay.
The brass fittings that connect to the water lines, they actually have you add an additional extender piece to the water lines. I'm not sure why, but I like it. It does give you some extra bit of, I guess, security in the fact that directly from your spout, you have a extra buffer of sealant. I don't know.
Yeah, see, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff.
It makes me feel like I have a more substantial connection to those things.
But I will say I don't understand why Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those kind of places do not think about the fact that men most of the time are not the ones picking out the faucets.
Right.
Especially it doesn't really matter for what room. I would say probably 90% of the people that go into Home Depot and Lowe's to pick out a faucet, they're females.
Yes, but I know what you're saying as far as the height.
I'm not talking about the height. I'm talking about the fact that they just don't have them where you can even, like you said, they weren't everything in Lowe's for the most part. I would over half of their stock that was up displayed on the wall
wasn't even assembled.
They weren't even assembled all the way, so that you could see what you were getting.
Yeah. Well, but also they build it like that so that they can keep stock underneath because they want you to be like, I want that one. Oh, look, there's the box. And it's, if you notice, they've got them set up where price levels are in different tiers. So the cheaper ones are up top, the middle price ones are in the middle, and the most expensive ones are near the floor. But again, that shelving stuff doesn't start until it's about your head level.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm going here to buy this thing, but I want to be able to touch the thing to see if I even like the way it feels. Because, I mean, let's face it, in the kitchen, you're going to be messing with it just as much as I am. And, you want to be able that you're, touching the item and saying, I like the way this feels. I like the comfort of it. I like the ergonomics of it or whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, we have a place here in town, Ferguson, that does really high-end stuff. And I mean, they're really set up like a showroom where you can go in and play with all the features and stuff like that.
I think it's Ferguson and PD1 Nelson.
And PD1 Nelson. But PD1 Nelson, for us here in Florence, is more like a construction
I don't think anymore. I think they have a showroom now.
Do they make a showroom?
Yeah, I think they have a showroom now.
Because the last time I went, they only had like 6 faucets on the wall.
I think they have a showroom. The only drawback from those places is that they're not open all the time.
Well, they're not open on the weekends, and the prices at Ferguson is going to be really high.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot higher for the same exact faucet.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they'll have some higher end stuff, the stuff that you can't get from Lowe's and Home Depot. But you're looking at spending $1,200 for a faucet instead of.
I mean, I looked on Amazon, and the faucet that we paid $329 for at Home Depot was actually, I think, $300 or $309.
Yeah.
So at 20.
But we would have had to go 3 days without a faucet.
Right. It wouldn't have delivered. It said it was delivery on Tuesday, and of course we know that when it gives a date now, that date's not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
And if it delivers on the day it says, it's always going to be 9:00 at night.
Yeah.
So it would be at least Wednesday before we could have gotten that faucet.
We'd be in bed and we'd hear Alexa go, you have a delivery. Like, come on now. Seriously?
Yeah. So that was a little too long for the dripping that we had going on. I don't think it would have flooded we would have had to set something under it.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that our water bill is high enough as it
Well,
is.
it's because we're paying for that city
We're paying for
sewage,
that, yeah, for county sewage.
county sewage, yeah, which is $65 as it's a flat
Yeah.
fee.
Our water bill never runs under $90. It goes anywhere
Yeah.
from 90 to 110 a month.
It's a racket.
It is. Got to
Yeah.
have it, right?
Yeah, and they won't fix. I mean, if it's on your side of the meter, or they won't fix anything. And it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Well, we've been there, done that, right?
Yeah, more than I care to. But, I guess that's kind of the fun of home ownership is you get to replace stuff like that and do it. And thankfully, I have the tools and some
Yeah.
ability, and you're patient enough with me to help walk me through it and hold the things when I need you to hold it and that sort of stuff. And so, we got it done together. I would definitely say this is not a one person job. You need two people. If for nothing else, then to help you hold things when you're connecting things underneath, and also to help you figure out where things go and how to center up your faucet whenever you're connecting it underneath. So I mean, it's a two-person job.
It was definitely a plus having two people.
If my mother's listening to this, I am not installing this for you. I'm sorry. I love you. But this to do this, you're going to hire somebody, and
Oh,
it's going
Miss
to be
Debbie, it's cool.
expensive.
You got to get one.
Jeez. Why? Why do you hate me? Why?
Okay, let's talk about something else. You got anything? You got anything? You got something coming up soon, right? You're
Yeah.
going.
So I am going with my brother-in-law Charles. We're going to see Bert Kreischer perform at the Bell Auditorium in Augusta, Georgia on March the 30th.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that. Bert just came out with his special this week. Razzle Dazzle is on Netflix now. I've watched it this past week with my wife on the corner listening to me giggle.
I listened to a few of the of his stories, and he's hilarious. He is hilarious.
He there's a lot of these stories that I know from listening to the podcast or listening to him on podcasts, and then hearing the joke develop into a joke has been pretty entertaining.
Well, now I had heard the story of the
snow machine,
the school raffle, and the snowball machine. I had heard that one before, so that was pretty good. But I had never heard the one of the escape room, and that was freaking hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, the escape room was great. Their whole thing was they wanted him to lose his mind.
Well,
his dad.
Of course, I realize while you're listening to it that this is a story that he has made up, but it's
kind of.
He's
a lot of it has happened.
Well, a lot of it's happened, I'm sure, but it just shows just how creative of an artist he is.
Sure.
Whenever you think about the fact that he can take a story like that and make it so funny that you just die laughing at it. So
and storytelling is a skill that he has talked to Ron White about. Joe, this is the Stuff I Heard podcast. Let me talk about some stuff I heard. Joe Rogan has opened up his comedy store place in Austin, Texas. It's called The Mothership. And he's been having some of the top comedians in the world come in there on a daily basis doing comedy. So Sunday night, this past Sunday, Bert was able to headline. And it just so happens that Ron White was in the crowd. I mean, Bert has said more than once that Ron's tater salad story is his favorite story he's ever heard. And he's asked Ron before, would you tell the story again? And he goes, no, I'll never tell it again. I've retired. I'm done. I don't want to do it no more. So Bert goes up and he does his normal, night at the store, and people are yelling the machine. And he's like, I'm not telling the machine. I'm done telling it. I told it enough. And he goes, I tell you what, if Ron comes out and tells his tater salad story, I'll tell it. And wouldn't you know it, Ron comes around the corner and goes, you're my favorite comedian. So here goes. They call me Tater. Say that's the whole thing. And he was like, okay. He goes, now I feel like a fool telling the machine story after you just did that.
Well, I mean, no, that story is unique to him.
Yeah. So it's, again, that storytelling skill is an ability. And I know we all know people who are bad at telling stories. And so sometimes Bert has people on his podcast and they'll tell him about something that's happened in their life. And they go, oh, let me tell you your story back to you. Because let me tell you how I would tell it. And then he'll develop the story and tell it back to them. And they're like, that sounds like a bit. He goes, it is a bit. Everything's a bit. You just got to learn to tell it right.
Well, I mean, you don't have, that's where he is the professional at what he does. I mean, not everybody has that ability, because if they did, then there'd be no need for comedians.
Yeah. It's like his Like his daughter is joking about him calling him baby walrus. You wouldn't get it, Dad. It's a joke. He's like, I think of this table, I'm the funniest person here.
Yeah.
Who do you think's paying for dinner and your teeth in your college?
Yeah, it was good. Do
Yeah.
you think, and I think I asked you this after you watched this special, whatever night it was this past week that it came out. Will he tell any of those stories when you see him in Augusta, or will it
No,
be all new material?
it'll be all new.
Okay.
Although he will close with the machine probably because people will still yell it.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, I've been to a lot of events and I've never heard applause like when he goes, "When I was 23, I got involved with Mush Mafia." And I mean, people just lose their minds. I've never heard cheers like that before. It gives you chills every time you hear it. You're like, holy crap! Like I know
Does
how
he
it affects
close with that?
me. Pretty much, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that was another question I asked you was because I've never been to see him live. And I have no, I mean, it's not like I do know if I wanted to see him live, I could go. I just have no desire to see him live. But of course, I mean, I do have questions. And one of them I asked you was, does he close with that every single time?
Yeah. That and also there's there's an interesting camaraderie between comedians because they all do a similar job and because podcasting has made them, support one another in an interesting way that he was on Rogan this last week also.
Yes, you've been
And
watching that one for 40 hours.
no, it's only 3 hours and 22 minutes. So I got it done in a day. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So there is a moment there where it is understood that Rogan sort of started this. For a long time, comedians would get to a point where they were successful and then they would just regurgitate the same stuff over and over again for 10, 20 years. They never worked on new material, they never did anything else. And it's almost like they felt like there was a limited supply of how many comedians there could be. Where when Rogan stepped into it, he was like, I don't want to be like that. I want to get to the top and then encourage everybody to do it. Because who doesn't love to laugh? We all need to laugh, right? So he's like, anybody that needs help, I'm going to help them. This is one of those things where it doesn't matter where you are in comedy. If you're doing comedy, you're respected by other comedians. So this mentality sort of stemmed from Rogan doing that. And that's why so many comedians have respect for Rogan. And even Rogan pays homage to Mitzi Shore, who started the Comedy Store, Pauly Shore's mom. There's a bar within his place called Mitzi's. And Pauly was on social media this past week. He went there to do comedy. And he was like, "Thank you, Joe, for all the love and respect from my mom." And it's a beautiful neon sign that has the word Mitzi written in cursive with a big star above it. And Joe was like, "I want to do this for young comedians. I want to do this so that they know that they can perform everywhere where the top comedians are going to be and they can be seen."
Okay,
So
so that is what? April, when did you say? April 30th?
March 30th.
March 30th. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So that's
Yep.
coming up, not this coming week, but next.
Yep.
I will be out of town then
Yes, you will.
in the lovely cold
You're
Oak
gonna
Creek,
freeze.
Wisconsin.
You're gonna
Yes, I'm
freeze.
gonna freeze.
Do you have a toboggan? You gotta make sure you take a
Toboggan?
toboggan.
No, maybe I do. I don't know.
Need something over your ears.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm looking. I don't know. I'm up in the air about this trip.
One of those scarf things that you can put over your face too, so you don't get wind chapped.
Uh, the whole driving in where when it's snowed or snowing. I don't think it's supposed to be snowing when I'm there.
The thing you have to think about is people do it all the time.
That doesn't mean I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing.
it'd be fine.
So I think right now it's getting down into the teens, the low teens there at night, and the
Yeah.
highs during the day is the like high 30s. So yeah, it's gonna be cold.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
So
Something else we watched,
what do we watch?
Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
Got to
Yeah.
talk about the Mandalorian because this episode, this past, when does it come on? Wednesday?
Wednesday.
You watch it every Wednesday morning,
Yeah.
right? While you're drinking a cup of coffee, waiting to go to work. I don't think I actually watched this one until Thursday
Friday.
evening.
Was
Friday?
it Thursday?
It may have been Friday.
I don't know. It was later because you were
I
like,
did
"All
not
right,
want to
let's
watch.
do it."
Yeah, well, you made a comment Wednesday night, Wednesday evening. You want to watch because I think I had been to the gym Wednesday evening,
Yeah.
and you were like, "You want to watch Mandalorian?" And I was like, "No, have you already watched it?" And you was like, "Yeah, but I'm gonna watch it again." And I was like, "No, not tonight. I'm just I don't want to watch anything." But I was thinking, okay, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be great because
It's
you
a
wanted to watch it again. It was a different episode,
to
but
me it was a setup episode. It was a we're giving you some backstory to tell you about these people. And so I think it's going to be a setup episode where all of that backstory with the doctor and with the woman that was double crossing him, I think it's going to be that she's working behind the lines to find Moff Gideon and get him loose.
I
Because I've heard the guy that plays him on different things say that
he's coming
he's
back.
coming back,
Well, I
but it's going to
get
be
that,
some
but
of his
why the whole
people.
thing about the doctor? Because just for them to wipe his memory at the end, I did not understand
Yeah,
why. I could get them introducing her or introducing that whole place,
yeah.
and we all know that he is Moff Gideon in prison there in that area
Don't
or
know.
something like
Don't know
that.
where he's at.
I get they did make a comment that this person, whatever her name was, it worked on Moff Gideon's ship.
Yep, we saw her
So I
whenever
didn't remember her at all.
whenever Mando came to rescue Grogu. She was there. She was like a comms officer.
Okay.
Um, and I was thinking at the time that she might be Sabine Wren in some kind of costume because there's times where she'll put on an Imperial costume and nobody knows who she is
Yes. Yeah.
because most of the time she has a helmet on. So I
I did
thought maybe
not,
this is her, but it's not her.
like I say, I get the whole bringing the bad guy back because that's part of
Yeah,
stories.
sure.
You have to have a good guy and a bad guy, more or less, to make, for these type things. But I did not get the whole avenue they went down with that doctor
Yeah,
with the fact that he was the cloning,
I think you're supposed to.
unless something about that is going to come up.
Yeah, so there is a lot of discussion over the fact that um, after in Empire Strikes Back, whenever Darth Vader cuts off Luke's hand, there is a comic book storyline that says they used his hand for DNA to try and recreate another version of Anakin. And there is supposed to be like a dark version in some of the books of Anakin where he is on the dark side. And there's some of this cloning technology that's going to feed into this storyline of this guy. I don't think they wasted all this time for nothing. I think it's sort of them letting you know some inside baseball before they killed him. But it's also a character that we didn't necessarily like in the first season of Mandalorian. And I think they wanted you to care about him just enough to watch him be double crossed. And you go, oh, that ain't right. Oh, you know what I mean?
You talking about the
Just the
scientist?
scientist. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I
all of that
guess.
was just to make us like relearn who he is and re-like him again, for them just to be double crossed for us to hate her even more, to realize that
Maybe.
she is the one you got to watch out for.
Well, I mean, the one thing he did say throughout the whole episode was that he had never intended his work to be used the way
Right.
the Empire
Yeah.
was using it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like I don't know whether or not he was a good guy or a bad guy. I'm not really 100% sure. Now, does it really matter?
Nope.
She pretty much wiped all of his memory, right?
Now he's a mindless thing.
Right.
Yep.
So, but I mean, that the way they portrayed him in this episode, he actually, from the very minute he walked on the screen, was he never intended for his knowledge to be used the way
Right.
it was being used.
He wanted to make it so that people who needed transplant organs to be readily available, so
Right.
that they get clone technology, so that his mother had passed away, and he was like, if I had this technology before, I could have saved her
Yeah,
life.
right.
So I mean, you get some of that backstory of how sometimes the bad guy comes from good purposes. Like even Anakin, he wanted to figure out how to not have Padme die. He was having these nightmares before all that happened, and he realized that he needed to do more research to figure out how to make her not die during childbirth. And that's where you realize all along it was the Emperor that was putting those thoughts in his head and leading him down the dark side, and that she was going to die regardless.
Well, it's way too complicated for me.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I got.
Moving right along.
That's all I got.
We are watching Outer Banks, which is kind of boring.
I kind of don't care about it.
I think we've only made it through 3 episodes,
Yeah.
maybe 4.
We've seen John B's dad, and
He's a wackadoodle.
he's dangerous. But I don't really care about anybody on the show anymore.
Yeah, it seems
If
to
we
me
didn't
like
watch it anymore, I'd be like, all right, that was one we started to watch.
I will probably finish the season,
And I'll watch a bad show.
have they already? You made a comment that they're already.
They've already greenlit season 4.
Geez,
Yeah, because season 1 and 2 were so
I mean,
good.
how much more unbelievable stuff? Of course, I guess you. I don't know why I question the fact that they can be in a boat in the Bahamas and back in the Outer Banks
Yeah, the blink of an eye.
it, overnight. I
Yeah,
mean,
they never talk about
that
having to fill
basically
up their
they never talk
gas.
about having to fill up with gas or anything like
Hey,
that.
we need to eat.
But yet,
Has anybody had any water lately? There's no that
I mean, you
comment.
watch a show all the time where they have lightsabers. So,
I mean, whatever. It's that suspension of
I guess
disbelief.
one's just as far fetched as the other.
Sure. Everything is suspension of disbelief. It is weird when you're watching a show and it suddenly occurs to you, hey, wait a second. These people have been in this area for a while. Nobody's cut the grass. Nobody's delivered any
Right.
food. Nobody's talked about how, hey, I'm having trouble with my kitchen sink. Can anybody give me some parts so I can fix my kitchen
Yeah.
sink? I
Right.
mean, all the day-to-day stuff, you just sort of suspend all of that to go, yeah, this is some crazy scenarios. And just every episode is that way. I mean,
I
yeah,
do find myself when I'm watching Outer Banks say out loud, do they really expect us to believe that?
yeah,
Although I don't question it when I'm watching The Mandalorian.
right,
So I don't know.
right.
It's
Well,
different.
I've never heard any single person on Star Wars go, hey, before we go off, can I just go to the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, true, true, true.
All this space travel's really got me stopped up.
But now, one other thing I did get accomplished this week for our upcoming trip to Disney. We've got that trip coming up sometime in May, early May.
Yep.
And I did get us reservations for Oga's Cantina,
Hey.
which is something that the last time we were there, we could not get in.
Yeah.
It is a hard place to get in. And from what I gathered, just looking at the menu, it's not a lot of options. I don't think you're allowed in there I think they have a time period on how long you can stay in there. They don't want people to go in and just camp out. It only has 2 menu items as far as food goes. They have like chips and salsa and a charcuterie board.
You said it.
Charcuterie board. They have a charcuterie board. But then they have some drinks. They have alcoholic drinks and non-alcoholic drinks. Mm-hmm. But we did get a reservation for there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
And we got Art Smith's Homecoming.
Yes. From what I understand from going back to Oga's Cantina, it's supposed to be the bar scene from the original Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Is that the bar that Luke and Ben go in to sit down and talk to? See, I do pay attention.
And Han shot first. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. It's supposed to be a recreation along the lines of that.
I found out through watching TikToks that they had Greedo shoot first, and there was a lot added to it whenever they re-released it, because apparently George Lucas divorced his wife and she had helped write some of the stuff they had done in the first movies. But due to copyright laws, if he changed enough of it, then it's a totally new movie. So he changed it from being Star Wars to a Star Wars A New Hope.
Oh, I didn't know any
just
of that.
So that he wouldn't have to pay her out any royalties anymore. I was like, oh, that is devious. Wow. Talk about hating your ex-wife.
That's creative.
Jeez.
Now I don't know who was the fellow you just called his name?
George Lucas.
No. Han Solo and
Guido.
Who is he? Is he the one with the squiggly things that hangs down his chin that says it's a trap?
No.
Oh, okay.
The green guy. When Han Solo sits down in the bar and
no.
It's in the movie where they're getting ready to leave to get on the Millennium Falcon.
I don't know. I'd have to.
Obi-Wan cuts off that dude's arm, and he says, we'll meet you at the ship. And they leave and Chewbacca's comes over to Han, and just about the time Han gets ready to get up, Guido sits down and he's got a gun pointed at him. And he's like, tell Jabba I'll be there to pay him. I got a big score coming up. And he's like, ooh, he's talking to that weird voice. He's like, listen, I'm working on something. And then right about the time he gets ready to shoot him, Han shoots him under the table. And then he looks at the guy and he goes, you got a mess here. And he like throws a tip on the table and walks out.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah. That was in the original.
So it's a trap guy.
No, that's the fish face.
Okay. Yeah. He was actually in The Mandalorian this last episode.
Different version, but yes.
Okay.
What I thought was funny is the guy working in the lab looks at him and the scientist looks at him and goes, wait, it's a trap. And I was like, He does it back to him.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anybody joke about that, but I noticed it and I giggled. So, yeah.
But on this trip, we are going to go into Oga's Cantina. We do have reservations for Art Smith's homecoming, Chef Art Smith's homecoming at Disney Springs. That is a restaurant that you and I have been trying to get into probably the last 4 times we've been to Disney, and we've been unable to get in. So, look,
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Not sure if we'll come up with some more. Actually, TikTok is teaching. There's some things on TikTok that's just. We tried the whole Vicks vapor rub thing last night for you to breathe. Didn't work.
That didn't work.
Didn't work at all. I did see the TikTok where you get on the Skyliner and ride over to Epcot to see the
Don't tell people
fireworks.
all the secrets.
Oh,
They'll
I'm gonna try that. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that.
Apparently, if you time it just right and you get on the Skyliner whenever Epcot starts their fireworks, you can watch it from the actual Skyliner,
Right.
and it looks pretty cool.
You don't have to have a park ticket to do that.
Yeah, it looks
So
pretty cool.
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right, well, I'm gonna wrap this up because I can't breathe and I gotta blow my nose again, and I don't want to do it on the air. So, thank you to everybody who's listening. Thank you for chiming in and letting us know you're there. Please check out the YouTube page where you see us replace 2 faucets in 2 days. It's pretty entertaining.
And we cut out all the bad words.
We got all the yeah, yeah.
Just cuss that thing right in there.
So there was lots of editing, lots of taking out things that didn't need to be said. So thank you for your help,
Yeah.
and I'm glad we got it done.
Thank you for letting me have the faucet that I wanted.
Yeah, it'll cost you. So yeah, please remember to rate, review, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends. And as always, I end this by saying, cue the cow.
So I want you guys to give me more likes. Give me more likes.